Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. Give us just 1 second. I just want to make sure that we are good to go. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. We want to thank you all for joining us today for our webinar. This is Workforce Alignment Solutions, using skills data to match talent with the needs of employers. I am so excited about this discussion today because we know that many communities across the country are struggling with trying to match job seekers or finding individuals to fill the roles that businesses have in their communities right now. We are joined by Rick Pearce and Matt Horning, and if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a introduction to them. We are all right. So I'll start off with Rick. Rick Pearce serves as the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, serving Middletown, Monroe, and Trenton, located in the Southwest Ohio, between Dayton and Cincinnati. Rick is responsible for the strategic direction and collaboration between other chambers, businesses, education, legislators, and government entities on a local, state, and national level. Prior to joining the chamber, he served as director with Omnicom Solutions Group, a corporate training company specializing in end-user software. Pearce is a graduate of Miami University, completed his U.S. Chambers Institute of Organizational Management program at the University of Arizona, and participated in the inaugural class of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation's Business Leads Fellowship Program. He also serves on many local, regional, and state boards. He has been the president and CEO of this local chamber since June of 2013 and lives in Middletown with his wife Sandra and their 2 grown children. Matt Horning is our product manager here at Emsi Burning Glass, a Minnesota native. Matt graduated with a BA in art education from St. John's University and completed his MFA in industrial design through the Academy of Art University. His background is in education, coaching, and design. Matt has worked on multiple areas with a broad range of people across the country to inform his human-centric design thinking strategies. His goal is to simplify complex problems and create delightful experiences to help people prosper. All right. And today what we're going to talk about is, specifically with Rick joining us, we're going to talk about the challenges facing Southwest Ohio, probably similar to other communities for those of you that's joining us. We're going to talk about a specific skill solution. I like to say it is not the solution. It could potentially be a solution. And we're going to dive into their solution called Skills to Careers. And so Rick's going to walk us through some of that, as well as Matt is going to show you in more detail some of that solution. So the reason why we brought you all here together is we know that there are specific challenges facing communities across the country. We read about it every day in the news. We hear about it from businesses alike. We hear about it from our community leaders, and it is that we are struggling to find individuals to fill the massive amount of jobs that we have in those communities today. And it is a broad spectrum of industries. It's not isolated to just one industry. Many industries are struggling to find individuals. So with that said, we had a video. It's not there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it off to Rick, and Rick's going to walk you through the specific challenges that is facing their specific community. I apologize, Rick, for whatever reason I cannot find the video on the PowerPoint. So, but if you're able to articulate that message, it would be greatly appreciated.
Well, thanks, Chris, and Matt. It's a pleasure being with you guys on the call today. Thank you for inviting me. So I don't think my challenges are any different than anybody else out there, especially in the workforce development or the chamber world. This is our 6th year of working in that space. So after my, and Chris, I want to say, if I go on too long, because I could talk for hours on this, just throw me the hook and we'll be out of it.
I got
so
you.
After I got back from one of my the first institute class that U.S. Chamber teaches, one of the comments that one of the instructors made that really rang true with me is, if you want to find out what you should be working on, talk to your members. So after I got back, I had our office manager set up a number of calls. So I went out and talked with our members and then asked them, what keeps them up at night? And inevitably back then, and still today, it was they had a workforce challenge. They couldn't find individuals with the right talent. They couldn't keep them. They were running into roadblocks, and it was just hard. So we started down that path in 2014. We started Manufacturing Day. Now, we didn't really start that. The National Association of Manufacturers started Manufacturing Day the first Friday in October. So that was our big first thing that we did, trying to get the youth K through 12 associated with manufacturing and what we do here. So located between Dayton and Cincinnati, we're heavy into steel, heavy into paper, heavy into automotive. Anything that gets made is probably made down here somewhere or within our region. So manufacturing and healthcare make up a great deal of our membership. So after we finished with Manufacturing Month in October, I started to ask the people that I went to class with, who's working on workforce development? What's it look like? And we didn't get many answers. Not many people were working in that field, or they weren't doing a very good job of it. So one of the things we reached out to is the National Association of Manufacturers, and we used their toolkit to help guide us through this. Well, one of the things that we had identified at that point in time was, in 2016, took us a while to do that, was jobs in demand. So we got a hold of the right people for our region to finally give us some data on what jobs are out there, what jobs are in demand. So all that data came back to us. We filtered it through Excel. We sorted the list in a certain way according to the number of jobs needed. And I shared that with our educational partners, our career technical school, our community college, and our four-year university. And I asked them, look through all the data, color code what you teach towards, and then when you're finished with that, send that back to me. So a lot of them said, well, Rick, we can't teach it all, but we teach part of it. So we got that response back from Career Tech. We got that response back from our community colleges. I said, well, at least mark your pathway. So all that stuff came back to us. We then put it in charts, and we've been sharing that with our K through 12 students ever since. So that was a big jump that we did to help let the students know what's available in our area that you could be getting into for a career. The other thing we did in 2016 is we introduced Industry Day, which is a development day for teachers. We took them out because they had the day off anyway, and we gave them a tour of a facility so they could get a better idea of what it was like working in manufacturing or working in healthcare. Because as we know, a lot of educators go from a K through 12 education, they go to college, and they go back into the classroom, and a lot of them doesn't have a lot of opportunity to go see anything else. And then there's a few other things on the page there. But what we're extremely proud of is in 2018 and 2019, we worked on this future ready skill set. So we brought in manufacturing, we brought in healthcare, and I asked them 3 questions. And the 3 questions were, what are the characteristics of your best employees? What are the characteristics of your worst employees? And what are the characteristics of an employee that you're going to need in 10 years? And we spent about 2 hours on that. And of course, they spent a lot of time on their worst employee skill set. Finally, I had to throw a red flag and say, okay, we have to move on. So we took that data, we took it for about a year, compared it against some national work that had been done. And it aligned really well with an organization out of Boston called the Next Generation Learning Challenge. About 95 to 98% of what we did aligned with what they did. So we were in communication with them on how we move this forward. Well, we all kind of know what happened in 2020. So it all put a stop to that. So one of the things that I wanted to do was work with the U.S. Chamber, had a talent pipeline management tool. It was a 6-step process that took the things that it's escaping me, supply chain management principles, and applied it to the workforce, the talent pipeline. And my co-chair at the time, still is, Bob Summers, says, Rick, you don't have time to take them through a 12-month process on how it works and then have them implement it. I said, okay, Bob. I said, what's our options? He said, I want you to get back to your major contacts across the country through the U.S. Chamber and through ACCE, the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, and talk with them and find out what chambers and workforce development places are doing this really well across the country. And I got about 6 names. We talked with one individual in Alabama, and we got some really good information from him. And they had built a proprietary piece of software that they were using that kind of works a little bit about what we're going to talk with today, but not exactly. So we asked if we could use it, and the answer was no. And then Bob remembers a conversation that he had with someone at Emsi about 15 years ago. So we made a contact. So we've been talking with your organization for a little over a year to get us to where we are. The other point that I want to make is during the talent pipeline process, one of the biggest steps is you bring your industries in together, you talk with them, and you try to form a common language. I thought, well, that might take forever. But one of the neat things was, after talking with Emsi Burning Glass, is we felt that their common language was the skill set. So we thought, okay, well, that problem's already solved for us. We don't need to get the people around the table anymore. We will just use you guys as the clearinghouse on the skill sets. Everyone will then adapt to that and understand that as time moves forward. So that's kind of where we are today. So for those on the call, this has been a 6-year-long process for us. We've tried to do something different every year and carry that with us as we march through the years, and it's led us to the product you're going to see today.
Thank you, Rick. And so far, can I ask you, I know that we are just now rolling this out in the community in a broader sense. You know, so far as you talk to your partners, whether it's businesses or other community leaders or your education partners, have they been receptive to at least the idea around a skills-based solution that speaks that common language?
The answer to that is yes. They're still uncertain about it because it's so new. So as a lot of you today will know, that anything new, you're somewhat apprehensive about. But we feel that this is kind of the direction that we need to go. A lot of people are also talking, Chris, about aptitude. And I realize that aptitude has a lot with skills, but there are a lot of individuals that have an aptitude to do something. They just may not want to do that for a living. So that's where we feel the skills are really a little bit more important than the aptitude part.
No, that's fantastic. What I want to do is I'm going to pass it off to Matt, and Matt's going to kind of walk us through a bit here of the various components of skills to career, and you know, anything that comes up with that project.
Sure. So thanks, Chris, for having me on here and that great introduction. Thank you, Rick, for your help with this process. It's been really great to work with Rick and his team just to understand and really get a sense of the challenges that are facing them. They're facing a lot of people, really, from all different parties here. We have the talent side, we have the employer, and we have the educators. And workforce sits right in the center of that, and they're the best people to work with to solve this problem. And so Rick has implemented Skills to Careers. We call it Skills Fit, and on their platform it's Skills to Careers, and it's really built on top of skills. And we're using this as a platform to connect all of these 3 different parties. So again, working with workforce groups, we're innovating together. As Rick said, this is very early in the process, so we are learning a lot as we grow. But our 3 goals are pretty easy here. I mean, easy to say, hard to do. But the goal is to just connect job seekers to relevant training, but really want to connect them to in-demand jobs, not just any job, a job that's something that they can grow in, that they can stay in the community with and empower and prosper. We also want to make sure that for any job that they might be interested in, that they have the steps and the knowledge to get from point A to Z. And then the best way to do this is now to manage and to measure, once they've gone through this process, where are they at, how are we tracking them, and at the end, is there any good data we can use to inform our next learnings? So skills, why skills? Well, we all have skills. Employers need skills and educators teach skills. So it's this common denominator between all three parties that we can now use like Lego pieces to really build different types of connections and different pathways from the employer standpoint, from the educator standpoint, and from the job seeker standpoint. So it's a really fun and exciting piece to really get to play with from a design standpoint, from a product standpoint, and it just kind of opens the doors to different possibilities.
Awesome. And Matt, while you're going on, if any of our attendees have any questions as we're talking about this, feel free to go ahead and put those questions in the questions box, and we'll get to those as they come up.
So as I mentioned, we're working on skills. It is that common denominator between all three. So we've worked with Rick and others. We interviewed several job seekers, several employers, as well as workforce groups to really understand all the challenges from each angle. And the real challenges was to distill this and simplify it as make it easy for all groups to interact and use that as that common language. And we built this tool. So we have Skill Fit, or Skills to Careers, that is mobile friendly, tablet friendly, and desktop friendly. We wanted to reach out and connect with those folks who were displaced workers during COVID, still are, and who may not want to go into the workforce centers that it could either be closed or they just don't have the transportation to get there. We wanted to be accessible to as many people as possible, to help as many people as possible. And part of that process here is to help them identify what their interests are, what their skills are, and then to match them to jobs. And those jobs could either be something they're ready for right now or a job they want to do in 5 years. And then we got to figure out what is that skill gap between those two pieces and find training programs and education programs to connect them. And that's really where the workforce group comes into play. Their networking, their communication, their relationships, they're the glue that really puts this all together.
Hey, Matt, can I ask you, it says here, identifying a job seeker's interests and abilities. So that process, like, how are we kind of assessing their interests first? And then what are those abilities? Is it, how are we understanding their skills? What does that process look like?
Yeah, so we learned from one of our other products called the Career Coach that there's an assessment called the Holland Code assessment. Some of you are very familiar with. And it's a quick few questions, or they can go really deep and do 30 questions, and it spits out some interests that are related to that person. And then we crosswalk from those interests that they may have to skills that they may have. And we do this in a number of ways. They can either upload their resume, and we'll extract all the skills from the resume and show those. The interests that they just completed on that assessment will also relay likely skills. So we're trying to recommend skills that they most likely have, but at the end of the day, it's up to them to select what they actually do have. So they confirm the skills they have, they can shuffle, they can explore different skills. We have over 30,000 skills in our library, so there's plenty to choose from. And the more skills that you add to your profile, the more confident you are, and the better we can match you to potential solutions.
Yeah, Matt, we have a question, and I'm going to bring Rick in a second too. Matt, is this customizable to the region? If so, what does that look like if a local region wants to utilize this specific to their region?
I'll let Rick take this one.
Is it customizable to your region, Rick?
We haven't really gotten that far yet on what the customization looks like, because as I shared with investors and stakeholders in our board, that we're building this as we go. So this was brand new technology and groundbreaking technology that started to move this. I'm going to guess that in the future that you guys are going to make it customizable, but the skills that we need in our area are going to be the skills that anybody could use anywhere else. So that's why we thought it was really beneficial to us to break that down into this skill set, because that's the basic common denominator, as Matt said earlier. Those are skills that employers need, that individuals have, and that education teaches, and or life.
I was going to add on to that. So there are some customizations you can do, and we will grow in different directions as we continue to develop and shape this product. But you can customize what job postings are posted, so your region. We can also use the upskilling area, which is the training providers, educators. Also, we can localize that to your region, and that can expand from one county to an entire state. And we can also customize the tool. As you see, Rick calls it Skills to Careers in their platform. They've changed the colors, they've changed a couple of the text to really make it work on their website. This is embeddable, it's an iframe, it goes on your website, so you can customize it to look really well on your platform where all of your people are coming to.
Yeah, I will also like to share though, Chris, when we talk about skills, there are some basic skills that are in here, but as they go through the skills profile, depending upon your level of experience and the positions you've had and the skills you've attained, it also has industry credential, certifications, and professional certifications that are also in there as well. So with 30,000 skill sets in the library, I think there's something in there for everyone.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I always find it fascinating to see what's actually in our skills library. I just learned that cleanliness is a skill that's in our library, which I think is a great skill to have. Matt, one of the things that, talking about that customization, matching to specific jobs in the area, I guess the question is like, how accurate do you feel as though if someone wanted, let's say they're in hospitality, for example, and maybe they're interested in being in hospitality, or maybe they're interested in moving into another industry, how does that work? Like once they extract the skills, will it show me, just the industry I'm in, or does it show me other industries? Like, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so we're really using just skills to match. So if you have all those hospitality skills, and we'll likely match you to all other hospitality jobs, but those hospitality skills also translate across many different areas. So it's really giving the user the ability to explore where their skills that they've collected over the many years can be, reused, recycled, or chained together to create a different path. And that's really an exciting thing, because instead of looking at a job board from the top down and reading through all these different job titles and understanding if maybe that's a job for me or not, it's really gruesome, daunting task sometimes, and it can take a lot of time. So this process really flips it around, and it starts with the person, with what they have, what their skills are. And a lot of times some people might have a job for a part-time job, and they don't think that really matters to their career trajectory, but it really does. There's a lot of skills that we learn in each one of those tasks or jobs, or volunteer even, that we can combine in different ways to find new jobs. So it's really, really exciting.
Awesome. We have a couple of questions, but I was just going to bring this up real fast, and then I want to get to a couple of these specific questions. But Matt, do you want to speak to just what we're seeing in the marketplace and what some of the solutions that we put up here, or products that we're already seeing out there?
Yeah, so again, kudos to Rick for looking at technology as a potential solution. And what we're noticing in the marketplace is that there's a lot of private businesses that are doing the same thing. They see skills as the future. And so we just wanted to show you a couple of different solutions here, and who else is using this. And a lot of them are using some of our back-end data. And so we're in this unique time where there's a lot of different companies trying to figure out the best way to communicate with skills and how to utilize them. But ultimately, it's pretty exciting to see where things are growing. And we thought that we should focus and work with the workforce groups. That's kind of the unique angle we have with it.
Yeah, no, that's great. One of the questions I had is, are we going to do a actual demo of the product today? We didn't feel as there was enough time to go through the product, but essentially, I mean, we're happy to kind of explain the process, but if you reach out to us, we're happy to put together a demo very quickly for you, so that you can see it live and in action. One of the questions that we had was, and I'm going to pass this off to, I mean, either of you can probably answer this, but RNs, tutors, truck drivers, they're important, but they seem to be overwhelming job postings lately. Matt, this actually would be a question for you. Can you customize or filter out specific occupations at this time?
Currently, that is not a feature, but it is a very common feature across many other tools, something that we've heard a few times. So it's definitely in the roadmap, definitely.
Yeah, and again, Matt, you mentioned this earlier. This is a skills matching tool. So if you have specific skills, you may not match to being a truck driver or an RN. So we're not prioritizing the jobs that have the top posting at this time in terms of the amount of postings. We're prioritizing based on your skills.
Mm-hmm.
Question, can you expand on types of recommended training programs? Does this include credentials, secondary education, apprenticeships? Does it include prereqs? How does that work? I think there's two questions here. One, does from a skills specific, if I have those skills, am I specifying I have these skills? How does that match to potentially jobs? How do I say I have a credential? And then also, how does the upskilling work potentially to match them maybe to a apprenticeship program or to go get a credential? So it's a pretty weighted question.
Yeah, well, the way we went about it was first we're understanding who the person is, where are they at right now, and then we show them jobs, and based on whichever one they choose, that is their end goal. Now, if they don't have all the skills yet for that job, we show them the skills they need to learn to get there. If they select a couple of those skills they want to learn, then we use those as the search, I guess you could say, for the upskilling. So based on the skills they identify that they want to learn, we'll show them courses and programs in their area. We do have courses from Coursera, edX, and Udemy, but we also work with you guys to work on your ETPL and get those scraped as well. So you can really connect them to all those different pieces. It's really, really neat.
Yeah, so one of the things also from a clarification standpoint is our skills library does pick up on specific certifications. It also picks up on specialized degrees. A lot of times, especially those that are familiar with Emsi skills library, our data, may notice that, you know, a Bachelor of Science in Nursing shows up as a skill. That's because an employer is putting that into the requirements for that job posting. And so we're pulling it as a skill that's required. It's really specific on those very specific degrees, can show up as a skill as well. Rick, I have a question for you. You know, the complexity of these challenges, for all of us that have worked in these communities know that, you know, workforce there isn't a silver bullet to fixing any of these challenges. It's multifaceted. It's pretty common that we get on a call, we're talking about labor market data and workforce challenges, and at the same time, they're bringing up transportation and housing and all the complexities, right? My question to you is, why do you think overall that skills could be considered a potential answer to helping individuals find sustainable employment and kind of moving up that economic ladder?
It's what all employers are looking for. You know, if you don't have a certain set of skills in a particular area, then you're not going to obtain employment there, and you're not really going to go much further. So one of the things that we're focusing on here is K through 12, and we feel that's a huge area to try and build awareness with the young people that they do have skills. And we want to try to use our skills to career as kind of like a training tool where they can get into it, take the assessment, look and see how they've done. It'll match them up with anything that the employer has a skill set for across industries. As Matt explained earlier, you know, it really doesn't matter. And then they can go on and do research on what it is they need to do to get there. The upskilling part that has not been pushed out yet will then match them up with a educational provider where they can go take those courses or programs to then get that skill. So as we looked forward into the talent pipeline tool, we saw that technology can solve a lot of that, so you don't have to have that conversation around the table and deal with everybody's crazy calendars and continuously meet in little boxes like we are today in Zoom or GoToMeeting or Teams. But you leverage technology. It's being leveraged everywhere else in the business environment except finding employment and or finding talent. Just recently, I had heard that Indeed came out with a version of skills, and I think they're at maybe 150. Well, 150 doesn't intimidate us or you guys because you've got 30,000. So, you know, I think skills is the basic language, it's the common language, and we're going to go with that until it comes up different.
Can I ask you, this is a little bit more employer focused in the sense that you work with employers every day. Do you believe, like, one of the things that I think we've seen for so long is that HR professionals have been able to essentially cherry pick talent for so long? Like, they can go through and say, oh, this person has pretty much everything I need to be successful. Are you finding kind of this transition where an employer, because they need talent, goes, you know what, this person has 50% of the skills I need them to have to be successful in this job. I'm going to help them get the other skills to get there, or I'm going to partner with our educational institutions or organizations like yourself to be able to upskill them, after I hire them to get them to 100%. Are you having those conversations, or is that dialogue happening in your community?
Not yet, but as we rolled this out in early February, before we really rolled it out in late April, I approached some of our larger businesses about that, and we took them through the demonstration. And we did have one regional HR representative did say about the upskilling part. They said, this is really interesting. They said, if I happen to find somebody that's got 46% of what I'm needing, and they only need 3 more skill sets or 4, and the upskilling part tells them where to send them for training, he said, that's a no-brainer on my part. I'm going to grab them, I'm going to hire them, and then I'm going to pay for their education there. Now, the part that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for education, we feel, and 2020 partly helped with it, is that they may have to deliver those classes sooner, quicker, better, faster, because I may not have to wait. My life may not allow me to wait until January when the spring semester starts for me to sign up for a class. I may need it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So the first part is, yes, we have had part of that conversation, but as Matt said earlier, the technology's new, so we just have to wait for it to catch up with us.
Yeah, we've mentioned a few times that the technology is new. Matt, I'm assuming skill fit didn't happen overnight. It's not like we woke up one day and we're like, we're going to do this, and next week we had a product. I'm assuming that's not how it works. Can you share a little bit? One, just the basics. We had a question on just the clarification of like the application itself. How does it work? So maybe like, how is it implemented on a local website? I think that's my first part of the question. And then my second part of that question is, how was this product informed? Essentially, what processes did we go through over the last year that really got us to this point of skill fit being a solution that is able to go out?
Yeah, so I'll start with how do you embed it and how is it applied. So we would work with you guys one-on-one. We would talk through what you might want to change, what you might want to customize, but ultimately it's just 2 snippets that get embedded on your website. And that could be just a brand new page or within an iframe. So that's fairly easy from the website. And how this came about, it's been a long journey. It's been a long journey for myself leading up to this. I started at Emsi, Emsi Burning Glass 2.5 years ago, working with the skills match team. So Emsi has been thinking about skills, and Burning Glass has been thinking about skills for quite some time now, just like Rick. And it's been a matter of, first we got to get all the skills API data figured out, and then how do we understand this? What is it? What do we use with it? And within Emsi, we have 3 different departments, one being talent, education, and then community insights. And each one of these departments has tackled this from their point of view. And so I had the pleasure of working with the skills match team and really understanding and learning from them and from their success and their failures here and there. And then I had an opportunity to work with the community insights team. And we saw the same problem, but from a different angle. And because we work with workforce and economic development groups, we thought, let's see how we can leverage, their insight and their intel and work together to really help the job seeker that may not be thinking about the 4-year college or may not be thinking about those long-term traditional roadmaps. And so this was kind of how do we really help anybody and simplify this even more? And so it's been just a constant design and iteration and continues growing. And so now we're at a good point where we have a working product and now it's a matter of continuing to iterate and shape it.
So I'm going to simplify this process, and then Matt, I'm going to have a follow-up question. But essentially, the job seeker does an assessment to just understand their interest, uploads their resume. We extract skills from the resume. They go through this skill selection process, and then we match them to jobs and or upskilling opportunities that identify maybe some of the lack of skills that they may have. That's the simplified process. There are things in skill fit today that we're really excited about. There are things that Rick, you have today, and you were, client one, so you were able to see, the matching to jobs and then recently upskilling. So Matt, my question to you is, what things what's on the horizon for skill fit maybe in the next 6 months that you may be excited about that's not there today? And then same question, similar to you, Rick, what things are you looking forward to seeing inside of skill fit long term that really helps to validate the work? So we'll start with Matt and then we'll go to Rick.
Yeah, so as many of you may know, Burning Glass is now part of our team and our family. So we're really excited to leverage all of the awesome technology they have, the data they have, and kind of play with the different pieces within the tool to figure out what is the most effective approach. And that's going to take time in terms of just learning from more and more users, really. But adding that data in, adding more occupation data, as well as their resume parser tool, which is amazing, and just really beefing up the process and the experience and making it easier, slicker, better recommendations, and really just trying to keep that job seeker engaged so that when it does come to the time when they're thinking about their next steps, there's a good foundation and there's a good conversation starter moving forward. Other than that, our goal is really just hyper-focused on the job seeker. So how can we help them not only figure out what job they want to get to, but how to get there, and then what? How do you apply for that job? How do you actually get the job? And there's a lot of things there that I'm excited about, but we're not quite there yet.
Rick, kind of the same question to you. What things are you hoping to see or excited to see in the future?
Well, I think that I don't really know how to answer that question, but I will start with saying that when we first started this conversation a little bit more than a year ago, as Matt was saying, your organization is so focused on the individual trying to find employment, whereas in my position, my number one goal is to help the employer find talent to fill their positions. So we're coming at it really from two different goalposts. Hopefully we can meet in the 50-yard line with a really nice tool. There are some things that I would like to see in this product in the future. And as I shared with my board and investors, I said the worst this is going to look is the first day it gets rolled out. And every day thereafter, it's going to look better and it's going to improve. So one of the things that I would like to see is more control from the employer end. So for instance, is there a way to keep those individuals who take the survey and build the profile into the database? Is there a way for the employer then to log in, put up the skills they're looking for, hit the submit button, and have a certain number of names pop up so they can then actively recruit those individuals to come and work for their company?
Matt's taking a lot of notes right now. to make sure.
I can always give Matt way more information than he wants.
No, it's good. We had a question. It was similar to a question a little bit earlier, and it's around being able to refine the job category. So they're specifically saying, can I refine the job categories to just the tech industry? Matt, I know you and we've had this discussion because there are individuals that do want to kind of just look at specific industries. Do you feel as, while that's not in there today, do you feel like that's something that could be on the horizon in the future?
Yeah, like you said, we've heard it multiple times now where it's at the point of, all right, it's at the top of the backlog. We're going to focus on that. I can't give it a timeline, but it's definitely something we understand. We get the value of that. So.
Yeah, and Kathy, a second part, I think we mentioned a little bit earlier too, if you are a job seeker and you have historically been in another industry, once you go through this skills process, you can search, like I could search, IT jobs, And while maybe, let's say I was in hospitality, I was an 80%, I always pick on hospitality, I apologize. But if I was an 80% match to the hospitality industry, because that's what I've been in for the last 10 years, and I type in information technology, we are going to display those information technology jobs in that local region, and we're going to show you those match scores. So while you may have been an 80% match to hospitality, you may only be a 40% match to information technology, but we would be able to show you what skills are you missing so that you can have a higher match score or potentially get the upskilling you need to be successful in that new role. So that is something that you can do today, and we are looking at additional filters here in the future. So Rick, I have two more final questions for you, unless anybody has some questions that pop up. But my first question to you, Rick, I want to fast forward 1 year from now. What do you feel may validate this experience? What does winning look like? Is it qualitative in nature? Your businesses are coming to you and saying, hey, this is working, we're finding talent. Or is there any other kind of validation tools that will help you, maybe not only just with this tool, but in general with all the work that you're doing that shows that you're finding success?
Yeah, I think there's a few of them. Actually, there's three, and it's all upon the area that we're in. So it's the educators, the employers, and the individuals. So one you already brought up. Yeah. So if the educator or the employers come to me in a few years, say, yep, it's working, we're finding talent, ask them how they found us. They use the website, they use Skills to Careers. Yep, there's a match. That validates it. The other part that validates is our communication with our K through 12 schools. When I'm hearing back from guidance counselors, principals, and educators and superintendents that say our students are finding a clearer path. So as they use Skills to Careers for a development purpose and research on their careers, then they're seeing a skill set that they have or a skill set that they want to get to that helps them get there. The other piece would be the educator piece, which is, and Matt could explain this a little better than I, but as the job postings get scanned, once it gets put back into the library and then the skill set is formed, then education can respond faster to it to know that they need to start teaching some of those skill sets in some additional classes. We need to touch on this, we need to touch on that. And that's stuff that gets updated, Matt, 8 times a year or even more. Whereas if you were performing an advisory council, you may only meet 3 times a year, and you're not going to get that kind of information. So I think the educators are going to be able to get better data quicker. It's going to be able to help the K through 12 students and those some out of the workforce for a while to help upskill themselves and set a clear path. And then the employers, hopefully we will inundate their inbox with qualified talent.
No, that's good. Before Rick, before I get to your last question, we had a couple of questions that came up. One was a follow-up, again, talking about that filter of IT jobs, specifically talking about a employer may have different skill sets for the same type of occupation. Matt, I'm going to allow you, I'm going to have you answer this question, but this idea, again, the foundation of what we're doing is at the skills level. So if let's say historically I was a software engineer, I put in all my skills. What does that look like when, those employers are asking for different skill sets, even though I'm a software engineer?
So from the employer or from the job seeker standpoint, you're going to match to probably a variety of software related jobs because, things like Java aren't just for software developers. There might be other roles within the software field that need or at least need some reference to that skill. So they're going to see a variety of potential areas that they might want to move into, areas that they may already be familiar with, or things that they haven't even thought about yet. And that's kind of that's where the conversation starts, I guess, with with Rick and his team, and they can say, hey, you've never thought about this because you maybe even know it existed. And then we can kind of work through those steps to get there. So it's going to show you a variety of different options is the best way to put it.
Yeah, again, it's being at the skills level. You have that opportunity where, I may have all the skills for a specific software engineering job, but didn't realize like there may be another company that are looking for other skills, and I may only be a match on 60% of those skills. The question is why? So when you click on that job posting, it shows the skills that you're missing. Then you can determine like, I wonder why that job posting requires these skills. Well, it's because that job is unique to that company. I have Rick, a couple of questions here that popped up. One, where are the job seekers coming from? How are they finding you or finding the platform? How are you pushing people? You know, because that's always the question is, where do we find the people, right? So what does that process look like for you?
That, Chris, has been an uphill struggle because as economic development and workforce development people know on the call and chamber people, that's not our market. We know where the businesses are. And the reason I focused on K through 12 is I know where to find them. At least prior to 2019, I was to find them in a building. So what we had to do, Chris, is we had to go back through our database of all the partners that we've worked with in the past 5 years and call them back to the table and say, here's what we're working on. I need you to do a demo. Any clients that you get, here's where I want them to go. So I won't get into the specifics of it, but we've reached out to our public library system. They are starting to put an icon on their desktop for anybody who needs to find employment. This is where they're going to start. In Ohio, we have Ohio Means Jobs. I've talked to those people within the county. I've shared with them that we realize Ohio Means Jobs website that they have to use. I said this is just another tool in their toolkit to help find employment quicker, better, faster for folks. We're working with treatment centers who are helping people with addiction who need to get back into the workforce. There's a couple of organizations like that that I'm working with. We're working with our youth in different areas to help guide them. So it's a long process. We're also going to work with a digital marketing team on how to put together a campaign of active and passive job seekers, so we can start driving that to the site. You just don't snap your fingers and have this thing work. I mean, it takes a lot of effort and energy to get it to go, especially with it's something new. One of the things that I did want to share is trying to retrain the employers on the terms they need to use so they can match up with the terms that the individuals are using has been a little bit of a challenge. You guys do have a tool that kind of helps with that. Trying to get the businesses to go through that has been kind of rough. So it's a little bit of a challenge with that. But if everybody starts using skills as the common language, in a few years, everybody will know what everybody's talking about, and those matches will be made pretty quickly and easily.
Rick, you kind of touched on it just a second ago, but we had a question referencing where's the local workforce board in this process. Now, I know that depending on the communities come from, chambers take a variety of approaches to their strategy in those local communities. Some are known as the workforce experts. Others focus on other parts of community needs. In your conversations, you mentioned you talked to the workforce partners in the area. Were they pretty much at the table in the beginning, or did you feel like this is something our community needs, we're going to go with it, and hopefully everybody just kind of jumps on board with us? What did that conversation look like in your community?
In earlier training through the Business Leads Fellowship that you mentioned through the U.S. Chamber, they encouraged us to leave some individuals out of the conversation due to certain factors. So we did. During part of this, I left education out of the conversation. I left the workforce boards out of the conversation because this was a problem that our members had that we had to focus on. And we had to determine, does everybody have a similar problem? You really can't do that with other people in the room. So that's kind of how we did that and how we came up with it. So we've kind of kept it to ourselves. Business had to buy into it first, that this is what we were going to be working on. The workforce boards were receptive to it. They're not totally sold on it. They know that it is another tool, but I will say that it's quicker and faster. And when you do things according to the skill set, boom, it automatically only shows you the jobs that you have the skill set for. So I'm not quite sure why we allow people to go start searching for jobs with titles and geographic locations they know nothing about when they don't know the organization's terminology. They could be looking for a job that just doesn't exist. So I know in some of the tools that you guys use to help write that job posting and that job description, a particular job could have 15 different names to it. And it could be just a matter of an organization just using the wrong name, that it doesn't get the most matches and it doesn't get the right terminology.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and that makes sense. And I will say that depending on the community, you know, today obviously we're talking with you, Rick, who leads a chamber of commerce, but in other communities across the country, the workforce boards are taking lead with the implementation of this tool. Economic development organizations, we've seen a variety of organizations say we want to take a chance on this and see how it can benefit our community. All right,
Sure.
Rick, last question, and it's going to go to you. For today, like I just mentioned, we have a lot of workforce or community leaders that are on the webinar, and they come from a lot of different organizations. Obviously, I can tell from the questions, some are from workforce boards, some maybe from chambers or economic development organizations. And we mentioned multiple times that many communities are facing a similar problem. To those leaders specifically trying to navigate these challenges, what advice would you give them if you were sitting right in front of them and they were like, Rick, I don't know what to do. What should I do? What tidbits could you leave with them on what their next steps may be? It's a big question. It's weighted,
Yeah.
and you're going to solve everybody's issues in the next 60 seconds. So.
No, I wish I could just wave my magic wand and have them all go away, but that's not going to happen. I think that you've got to kind of understand the scope of it, which is why I wanted to kind of share with everybody that this is 6 years in the making for us. We just didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, this is where I think we need to go. So we've evolved to this. There was a lot of background work that we had to do, that we had to understand, like the jobs in demand earlier, what our post-secondary schools are teaching, and this, that, and the other. So I think the biggest thing that I might offer is get your stakeholders around the table. Obviously, the employers have a huge stake in this, because without them, you don't have communities, because those are the people that employ people that move into your community and who grow roots and who buy houses and cars and stay there. The other part is, I think egos have to be put aside when people walk into the door. And as a wise man once said, great things can be accomplished when nobody cares who gets the credit.
That's a fantastic quote to end on. Thank you, Rick and Matt. I really do appreciate it. We have a poll up there. If you do want to learn more about Skill Fit, I had a couple people write me in questions in chat that they did want to see a full demo. Go ahead and mark here that you want to see that demo, and someone from our team will reach out to you to be able to show it to you. Rick, thank you so much for your insight today, for being a fantastic partner with us through this process. Like you said, it's been a year in the making, just with this product. It's been 6-7 years in the making for you. And Matt, thank you so much for providing some insight today on the tool itself, how it functions, how it works. We really do, our goal here is we really do hope that this is not necessarily the tool, but a tool that can help job seekers find great careers in your community. And we really look forward to helping those communities out. So again, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everyone that joined us today, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yep. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.